The bell above the diner door jingled softly as the late afternoon sun poured through the dusty windows of Maple Creek Roadside Diner, a forgotten little place where truckers stopped for pie and locals came for coffee refills and gossip, and behind the counter stood Lily Hart, a 19-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a gentle smile, balancing plates while hiding the bruises life had given her. Bruises that didn't show on her skin but lived deep inside her chest from years of growing up too fast after her mother died and her father vanished, leaving her to care for a younger brother and an unpaid stack of bills that never seemed to shrink, and that afternoon should have been like any other. Wipe tables, refill cups, apologize too much. But it changed the moment Karen Whitmore swept in with her cloud of entitlement, heels clicking like warning shots, designer sunglasses still on indoors, voice already sharp before she even sat down, because Karen was the kind of woman who believed the world existed to serve her, and if it didn't, she made it regret the mistake. So when Lily politely asked, "Hi, welcome in, what can I get you today?" Karen didn't hear kindness, she heard an inconvenience, snapping back that she'd been waiting forever, despite having just arrived, complaining about the booth, the lighting, the smell, the temperature, and Lily apologized each time, because apologizing was cheaper than losing tips, cheaper than confrontation, cheaper than pride, but it wasn't enough for Karen, because Karen didn't want service, she wanted submission, and when Lily returned with the wrong brand of bottled water, because the diner stocked only one, Karen scoffed loudly and announced to the entire room that kids these days are useless, drawing uncomfortable glances from other customers, including a group of 3 teenagers at the corner booth, local bullies who fed off cruelty the way flies fed off garbage, laughing when Karen laughed, encouraged by her approval, and when Lily quietly explained the diner didn't carry the imported brand Karen demanded, Karen leaned back, eyes narrowing, and said loudly, "Then maybe you need to be taught how to listen." And that was when she turned to the teenagers and, half joking but fully serious, told them, "Why don't you scare her a little, huh? Might knock some sense into her." And the room went still, because people knew those boys, knew their parents had money and their records were always clean despite rumors, and Lily felt her hands shake as the boys stood, grinning, blocking her path as she tried to retreat behind the counter, one of them mocking her voice, another stepping too close, the smell of cheap cologne and arrogance filling her nose, while Karen watched with satisfaction, sipping her coffee like a queen watching gladiators, and Lily's heart pounded because she'd seen this before, in different forms, different places, always the same power imbalance, always the same fear, and she whispered for them to stop, but the boys only laughed louder, one knocking a tray from her hands so plates shattered on the floor, drawing gasps but no one intervened, because fear spreads faster than courage, and Karen smirked, saying, "Oops, looks like you'll have to clean that, sweetheart," and Lily knelt, hands shaking as she picked up broken porcelain, a tear falling onto the checkered tile, when suddenly the bell above the door jingled again, softly, almost politely, and a man stepped inside who didn't look important at first glance, mid-50s maybe, simple gray suit, no tie, calm eyes that noticed everything, and he paused, taking in the scene, the broken plates, the teenagers looming, the woman smirking, and something shifted in the air, though Karen didn't notice yet, because she was too busy enjoying herself, and the man took a seat at the counter, placing a worn leather briefcase beside him, and in a steady voice said, "Excuse me," not loud, not angry, but it carried, and everyone froze, because authority doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers, and Lily looked up, hope flickering, while one of the boys sneered, telling the man to mind his own business, but the man simply nodded and said, "I am," then turned to Lily and asked gently if she was okay, and Lily tried to answer but her voice caught, and that was when Karen finally looked over, rolling her eyes and snapping that this was none of his concern, that she was a paying customer, and the man smiled faintly and replied, "So is she," with her dignity, which earned a laugh from the boys, until the man reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone, dialing calmly, and Karen scoffed, thinking he was calling a manager, unaware that the manager was already cowering in the kitchen, and when the man spoke, he said only, "This is Judge Elias Monroe. I need local law enforcement at Maple Creek Diner." Yes. Immediately, and the room went silent so fast it felt like oxygen vanished, because even in a small town, that name carried weight, and Karen's smile cracked, her face paling as she stammered that he must be joking, that anyone could say they were a judge, but Judge Monroe calmly opened his briefcase and placed his federal credentials on the counter, turning them so everyone could see, and the teenagers stepped back instinctively, their bravado draining like water from a broken cup, while Karen's hands trembled, knocking over her coffee, and she suddenly laughed nervously, saying it was all a misunderstanding, just playful teasing, but the judge's eyes hardened, because he'd spent decades seeing cruelty dressed up as jokes, and he stood, walking slowly toward Lily, helping her to her feet, asking her name, and when she said, "Lily," he repeated it like it mattered, then turned back to Karen and said, "You ordered minors to intimidate an employee. That's solicitation, harassment, and potentially assault," and Karen sputtered that she didn't order anything, that she was being targeted, that Lily was incompetent, but the judge raised a hand, silencing her, because authority had entered the room fully now, and the bell jingled again as two sheriff's deputies rushed in, alerted by the judge's call, and within minutes the diner transformed from a place of quiet humiliation to one of public reckoning. Statements taken, the teenagers separated, their parents called, their smirks replaced by pale fear, while Karen tried to call her husband, her lawyer, anyone, but every word she spoke dug her deeper, because witnesses found their voices once safety arrived, customers describing what they'd seen, phones producing video footage Karen hadn't noticed, and Lily stood there shaking, overwhelmed, until Judge Monroe gently told her she did the right thing by surviving, words that sank into her like warm light, and as Karen was escorted out, she turned, eyes wild, screaming that she would sue everyone, that this wasn't over, but the judge watched her go with calm certainty, because he knew exactly how over it was, and in the days that followed, the story spread through Maple Creek and beyond, not just because a judge happened to walk into a diner, but because of what followed. Karen Whitmore's charges escalated when investigations revealed a pattern of similar incidents, hush money paid, complaints buried, power abused, and the teenagers faced consequences too, mandated counseling, community service, a chance to unlearn cruelty while they were still young, and Lily, who expected nothing more than a return to anonymity, received something she'd never had before: support, the diner. Raising funds for her brother's education, customers tipping not out of pity but respect, and one afternoon, Judge Monroe returned, not as a rescuer but as a customer, asking for pie, and Lily served him with a steadier smile, thanking him, to which he replied, "I didn't save you, Lily. You survived until help arrived." That's strength, and months later, Lily enrolled in community college, studying law, inspired not by revenge but by justice, by the idea that quiet people could still hold loud power, and years later, when she stood in a courtroom as a legal intern, she saw Karen Whitmore again, older, diminished, no longer the queen she once believed herself to be, and Karen didn't recognize Lily at first, but when their eyes met, recognition dawned, and Karen looked away, because some lessons never fade, and Lily realized then that the true twist of that day wasn't the judge walking in, but the fact that cruelty finally met consequences, and a young waitress discovered her worth in the shattered plates on a diner floor, proving that even the smallest moments can change the direction of a life forever.